So there is a vaccine typically for that. The new IHME numbers, University of Washington model that I think most of our leaders have been referring to, suggests about 60,000 deaths nationwide by August 4th. That would be fewer than what the annual influenza caused a couple of years ago with a vaccine. So does that shake your faith at all in the utility of a vaccine for this disease? Maybe it's not the final answer.
Yeah, it doesn't shake my faith in either the vaccine.
Let me ask you about the specific measures you just referred to. Now, large gatherings are banned, but liquor stores are deemed an essential service. Why, on the basis of what scientific evidence did you decide that?
Couple of things. One is there are liquor stores in our state that actually have a little bit too many backroom gatherings. So we had a little bit of a challenge. We had to remind folks that liquor stores may be open, but to your point, gatherings are not allowed. We relied on a whole lot of input, reasonable input from recovery coaches, addiction coaches, and they cautioned us if we were to shutter those stores down, we'd have unintended mental health and addiction prices to pay, unintended consequences. And so far, that's the route we've taken, and my guess is we'll continue to take that route.
So, but you have closed church services and synagogue services and arrested people for attempting to attend them. Did anyone say that maybe practicing your faith might be important to someone's mental health?
Listen, I think we've had a very good common ground with faith leaders of literally every faith who understand this. And by the way, whether it's a liquor store, a pharmacy, a supermarket, we expect folks to distance themselves from each other, to wear face coverings, etc. There's an enormous amount of faith going on virtually right now, a lot of practicing going on, and we care deeply about both physical health and mental health.
Of course, but I don't want to be too persistent on this, but I think it's important. On what scientific basis did you decide that sitting in a church was much more dangerous than buying liquor in a liquor store? And why is buying liquor more important for the social fabric? I'm just trying to think. You're not the only governor who's done this, and I don't mean to pick on you, but I don't understand the reasoning. I don't want to think it had anything to do with tax revenues.
No, it does not have anything to do with tax revenues. Our revenues are so blown up, that would be a rounding error, trust me. This is not either or. It can be and both. I've spoken to Cardinal Tobin, to the leaders of the Jewish community, of the Muslim community. People are at peace where we have come out there. No one's happy. Everyone wants to get back to what they think of as the norm, and who could blame them? I want to do that as well. But I don't think these are one versus the other. I think you can have both of these realities at the same time, and that's what we have in New Jersey right now.
So why, back a couple of weeks ago, you closed state parks, and people have been arrested for using them. A man was arrested for sitting alone on the beach. Tell me why that poses a danger. And again, on what scientific basis did you make that decision?
Yeah, so Tucker, we were coming into both warm weather and big religious seasons. It was Passover first, then Easter. We've got Ramadan coming up shortly. And certain of the counties were beginning to close their parks. And the concern was that the folks who couldn't go to their normal park would go to another park, another county or a state park. And it wasn't just a gut feel. We then, the state, up and down the state on that first weekend of April, where we had some good weather in New Jersey. And in fact, that was just what we saw. Lots of people congregating, lots of out-of-state license plates. So it was a step, trust me, I took no joy in taking that step. But it's one that we felt we had to take. And as I mentioned to a bunch of legislators today, it's not a life sentence.
Okay, but on what basis? What scientific? Because I'm just trying to get to the science. I assume all of us are following the lead of epidemiologists. Arresting someone for sitting alone on the beach, tell me how that arrests the spread of the coronavirus from an epidemiological point of view.
Yeah, I wasn't referring to that. I actually don't have the specifics as to why that happened. I meant congregation at state and county parks, of which there was an enormous amount when the weather got warm, and the fact that folks weren't, it's not that they couldn't be in the park and jogging by themselves or walking on their own and keeping distance. They weren't. And there were a lot of out-of-state license plates in the parking lot, and we've got some of the nicest parks in the Northeast, if not the country. Again, it brings me no joy, but we felt that was the right decision to make.
Huh. So you made that decision, and as I noted before, 15 congregants at a synagogue in New Jersey were arrested and charged for being in a synagogue together. Now, the Bill of Rights, as you well know, protects Americans' right, enshrines their right to practice their religion as they see fit and to congregate together, to assemble peacefully. By what authority did you nullify the Bill of Rights in issuing this order? How do you have the power to do that?
That's above my pay grade, Tucker. So I wasn't thinking of the Bill of Rights when we did this. We went to first of all, we looked at the data and the science, and it says people have to stay away from each other. That's the best thing we could do to break the back of the curve of this virus that leads to lower hospitalizations and ultimately fatalities.
And I'm not contesting that, though. I think I do think there's a debate. This is a rolling conversation because we're learning new things every day, and nothing is settled at this point.
Understood.
But I do want, since you are an elected official, a leader in the government, an executive, how do you have the authority to order something that so clearly contravenes the Bill of Rights of the United States, the U.S. Constitution? Where do you get the authority to do that?
Well, here's the thing. We know we need to stay away from each other, number one. Number two, we do have broad authority within the state. And number three, we would never do that without coordinating, discussing, and hashing it out with the leaders, the variety of the leaders of the faiths in New Jersey. We are among, if not the most diverse state in America, so we're used to that.
I'm sure that you talked to every rabbi and priest, but there's a deeper question here, and I'm just going to ask you one last time because I think it's important. I'm sure you've thought about this. You can't just, as the governor of a state, tell people who they can talk to, when and where, because the Constitution of the United States, upon which all of this is based, prohibits you from doing that. So you clearly decided that you could do it. Did you consult an attorney about this? Did you? I mean, because this is a legal question as well as a medical one, isn't it?
I don't go to the men's room without consulting an attorney, so I guarantee you we did that. But I'll give you an example that was not related to the synagogue. I called up Cardinal Tobin, Cardinal Joe Tobin in Newark. There are 5 or 6 archdioceses in New Jersey. It was coming up to Easter and Holy Week in particular. And I said, listen, I'm really concerned about drive-through Holy Communion, because we had heard some stories about priests who unwittingly had the virus and unwittingly passed it on to parishioners. And he said, we're not doing that. I promise you, and I'll confirm that with my fellow bishops. That's not denying someone their right to worship in any way, that we have to find a different way to worship. And I think that's the point. God bless America.
Yeah, government's not allowed to tell people how to worship just as a sort of factual matter. Last question, sincere question. So these orders, which again, I'm presuming and I believe were taken in good faith under trying circumstances, have nevertheless, and you just said it, have resulted in an awful lot of suffering. 577,000 New Jerseyans on unemployment. Doubtless the suicide rate will increase. The addiction rate will increase. Liquor stores are open, as we noted. How much does that weigh on you, that the suffering that this lockdown has caused might equal or perhaps outweigh what the virus does? Do you think about that?
It weighs heavily, and you ask yourself every day, are you making the right decision? And the answer is this. Twofold, Tucker. One is we continue to make every call based on the facts, the data, the science, as best we can. And secondly, I look at what we're doing versus the alternative. And I know that the alternative, had we stepped back and let this virus run amok, 3+ million people in our state would have been infected, and the healthcare system would have had no chance